Hey, Maria. Oh my gosh. This is a hot mess. Hey, Tiana. Huh. Oh gosh.
But
Man.
doesn't
Okay.
it always happens like this. It always happens like this. It can't be great.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully, third time's a charm. Okay. We finna start from the top. All right. 'Cause I have to go from phone to phone, the right lighting, and now the phone I was using crashed. So back on my cracked screen. So
See, Jazz was right. She was right. It was recently.
yeah, it was us. My bad. Thanks, Jasmine. You was trying to warn me. Oh my gosh. Okay. So from the top. All right. So my name is Stephanie Jack. Um, my so this live is the Rose Golden Hour live series in
Yeah.
2020. And what it's about is I bring women of color together, and these women are either moms, they are birth workers, they are entrepreneurs, or a mixture of the three. And I want to have intimate one-on-one conversations, which of course is a collaborative of the comments in this, in our comment section, and free for people to have space to for us to normalize things that we don't get to usually talk about. And I
Right.
said this very well the other two times. I'm a little frazzled. Yes, Instagram does want to play. And tonight, our live topic is full spectrum birth work and parent advocacy. And our guest of honor tonight is Miss Ashley Lester. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself and her business. And yeah.
All right. So, like she said, I am Ashley Lester of Hope in the Future Birth. I am a full spectrum doula, and what full spectrum encompasses before, after, and during birth, as well as those who elect to have an abortion or we have stillbirth, all of those things that are included in full spectrum doulaship. So I do that. I'm also a mother of two girls, two free girls. One's a gymnast and one's about to be two in December the 15th. I am also a wife, been married for about 8 years now. I think I forgot that on the last little bit of life, but yeah, so he's important. He's very important. So, but yeah, that's me on the birth work side. Yeah.
And before everything crashed, you
Yeah.
were telling us about the fact that you do birth work kind of part time, but
Right.
your primary work that you do is work as a history teacher.
Yes, yes, yes. So I got my master's in social science, and I've been working as a history teacher for about 4 years for our virtual school or our virtual option school here in Alabama, which is a public online public school. So basically, school but online, and it's different. We've been doing this for a while virtually, and it's pretty cool. A lot of people probably say negative about it right now because of COVID and things have changed, but I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. We've been doing it for a very long time, and it's been very successful and had a lot of seniors graduate. I tend to work with high school, so it's really cool.
I think I was trying to make last time was the fact that I think it's because online school or online public school was introduced earlier on when you began, and so you have had a rhythm
Oh
to
yeah,
integrate your students in, and it hasn't been such a negative fiasco for them. You know how it is now with COVID for the masses and
right,
people
right,
acclimate to something that they're not used to. So I think
right.
that that's amazing because you are able to normalize what a health virtual experience can be like.
Yeah, and a lot of those kids want to be there. They chose this option. They weren't forced into it, so that makes a huge difference as well.
And so before I start asking all of the nitty gritty questions, I
Yeah.
want to kind of take a break to do some little icebreaker questions if you don't mind.
Oh yeah.
And so let me know, what were your highs and lows of this past week?
Ooh. Hmm. I guess a high was me and my family decided to do a live tree this year. And we were able to actually go out, pick a nice tree. It was very easy going. My memories as a kid getting a live tree, it was definitely a fiasco. And then end of the night, my parents were, telling us hurry up and go to bed because they had, a fiasco. Just we always made a family event out of it. So this one was smooth and easy. So that was definitely a high. A low. I guess you know what, my actual work, my full-time work, it's getting towards the end of the semester, and me as a teacher, I don't want anyone to fail or not have all the resources. So I have a few students that I'm like giving them everything I got, but it doesn't seem like they're just gonna make it. So it's kind of got me a little low because they're seniors and this is it, this is the end of the road. So that's got me a little low. But hopefully, before the week is out, they will have better grades and we can go into winter break pretty smooth and not worry about it.
It's been over 7 years since I've been in high school, and I do much remember that stress of trying to make sure that things are before you
Yeah.
break. My brother just turned 18 years old today,
Oh,
and he's like the baby, and finally gonna exit
yeah.
high school, and so I definitely understand that aspect from the student standpoint, and of course the parent or the teachers.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me, what is a personal talent that you possess?
Um, you know what? Before probably a couple months ago, I did not realize I had this talent. I just thought it's what you do. My friends were telling me, what are your spiritual gifts? We all kind of sat down and thought about what our spiritual gifts was, and they was like, "You're creative. You're very artsy." And I was like, "I can't draw work, nothing." But that's not what they thought is artsy. It was like if you, think of something, for instance, like say, they brought up the example of my 1 year's birthday party. I was like, she's born in the winter. Let's go all out with the winter. She's like, anybody else? They just would have had cupcakes and, and drinks. They was like, well, you do it big. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. So I guess I tend to take a theme and go with it. And I don't like doing things, halfway. I got to go all out. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it well.
Yeah, I think that that's an amazing talent because I'm very much similar in that aspect where it's like I go, I'm very detail oriented and want to,
Yeah,
you know, the feelings that I have for the person when it comes to like whether it be gifts or an experience that I'm trying to give a client or whatever the case, I want it to be tailored to different details that I love
right.
about individuals. So I resonate with that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. What is something that you are looking forward to?
Um, hmm. I'm really looking forward to, and I know it sounds crazy, like, this past year was crazy, COVID and being a birth worker and how that works, but I'm really looking forward to the response or people's thoughts after their debriefing, like a year from now, how they're going to feel about their birth and how they're going to feel about me as a doula or whatever service I provided for them. So I'm looking forward to those, I guess you say, reviews, those type of things a year later. Because right when it happens, it's always good, and then you think about it, it's like, was it as good or was it better than what I thought it would be? Comparing things. So I'm just um, waiting on that. That people when they really get to settle down, because it's been hectic for a lot of people in so many ways.
For sure. Um, I feel like that's interesting because I just visited a client who I recently attended her birth, right before I found out that I was pregnant. And so,
Mm,
yeah, it was crazy. It was literally the same day. And so I went to go and see her because once I found out all of that, it was a huge um shock to me. It was like
mm-hmm.
an emotional just roller coaster. And so I had taken a lot of time to kind of separate myself from all of the work that I had been doing up until that point so that I could make sense of my new adjustment and try
Yeah.
to figure out what I wanted to do with that. And I finally went to see her. So her baby will be 3 weeks on Friday. And so I just wanted to like revisit, like, what do you remember from your birth? What do you remember from, all the things that occurred and how you felt and all of
Yeah.
as we work towards her healing. And so um, one of the things that I felt was unique to me that I wanted to do was to continue at least communicating to a certain extent with my clients until their child was a year old. And I feel
Right.
like doing that initially, I felt like if I'm as thorough as I can be, I can reduce the risk of death or trauma or something
Yeah.
I'm going to miss. But then
Yeah.
I feel like, in time, you may feel like what you thought was a great experience with me as your birth worker, it may not have been, or it may
Yeah.
still, so I love the fact that you look forward to seeing the reviews and seeing the change between when you initially begin your journey with your client to where they are a year from now.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Yep. That feedback, I think, is going to be great, growth. And then if they have future kids, I think that even helps them as well, too. Yeah.
um, how did you begin your journey of birth work?
Actually, it's kind of ironic. Obviously, I had kids or what have you, but I tend to be that person that don't mind giving advice, don't mind trying things. And in my little group or circle of friends, I'm kind of the first one to have kids and be married and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people always come for me to advice, but I didn't just want to give them advice that I experienced. I always wanted to give them some evidence-based stuff. Like, I'm not just going to tell you something. I'm going to go show you all the research and where to get it from, because it's important for you to believe your friend and personal experience, but it's for you to know exactly where that information come from. And a lot of people were telling me, like, you should be a doula and people would really like to have you there. And then I just so happened to be at my sister-in-law birth, was not planning it. It just happened. And I mean, I was coming in there to get her something to eat. The whole time I've always given her advice or what have you, because it was her first baby. But um, I was in the room when my niece was born, and it was like, boom, I'm thinking about doing this. Still waited a little while, what have you. Then I had another child, and I got involved with the chocolate milk mummies. And they do breastfeeding awareness, especially for African American and Black moms. And those women are awesome. And they just like inspired me to the point where I was like, you know what? They're advocates for the people who need it most. And that's my community. I need to be an advocate too. And that's just literally where I, reached out to most of the moms in that group who were doulas as well as lactation consultants, and just went on about it. Started looking up the information. I'm a researcher, so I started figuring out the best way for me to get training or what have you. But I think for most doulas, it kind of comes naturally, and then you get the training or the certification to kind of just back you up. But I think it's always like deep in you, um, and it just takes that push to pull it all out.
Yeah. Um, I think that it's I agree. It's something that is deep within you, and I think that the advocate in me is what essentially pushed me forward in making the
Right.
decision. I had spent 2 years prior being an advocate and an activist for workers' rights and for the fact that slavery is very prominent in the jobs that we currently work in, and
Yes.
so that transitioned into, oh, slavery created obstetrics and gynecology, and how can
Hmm.
reveal that to people that feel like I 100% trust um, the medical industrialized complex. And so um, I want to take some time to talk about what full spectrum birth work means, because
Yeah.
I am someone, I felt the passion. I wanted to be a doula, and then I trained with Donna International for the birth doula training. But then over time, I felt like I want to be able to do it all. Like I want to be able to help women in all aspects. And so I currently feel like even though I am certifying under that umbrella, I am
Mm-hmm.
doing research to make myself as much of a full spectrum person as I can. So I want to talk about like what full spectrum actually means and what that looks like for you.
Well, full spectrum doula, like I said earlier, it is basically encompassing everything from birth to, we always talk about birth and postpartum, but you also have fertility, people who are trying to get pregnant. That is one area. And then another big area that we tend to leave off is either stillbirth or elective abortions. Um, Big with being a doula, you need a doula in all aspects. Even a doula needs a doula, birthing or what have you. And so, there's people out there who need a doula for, or need an advocate or a doula for fertility, where to start, where to go, who do I need to talk to, or what may be my issues, or I might not even have issues that I thought I did, those type of things. And they need someone to help them and guide them through that. And we know about birth and we know about postpartum, but another big thing, and I think I lean more towards that as well, is an abortion doula. Here in Alabama, it is hard to get an abortion, whether it be medical or surgery or, all of that elective or what have you. And then it's also a very touchy subject in the United States as a whole. But there's a lot of women out here who get abortions and they are alone during the entire process. And it would be nice to have someone there to help them, not necessarily, decide if they're not there to decide if they need an abortion or not, but to make sure, especially if it's a medical abortion, that, they take their pills and they do that on time. And there's somebody there if something does happen and they need to go to the hospital. And then always, for all of those aspects, somebody to debrief with and understand what you're talking about when you're talking about, oh, the OB did this and I wanted that, or even something as simple as, um, a stillbirth. I wanted to do this with my baby before they cremated that baby, or what have you, it may be. So, full spectrum will encompass a lot. It is a lot to deal with, and I think people do find their niches over time. Right now, I'm still doing birth and postpartum and all of that, but there are occasions where I've had few women who are either had pregnancy loss. Um, and they hired me as a birth doula. It didn't end that way. And then there's those situations where they know they're getting an abortion and they need somebody there because they can't tell anyone. So, um, I've dabbled a little bit in all of it here and there, but we'll see where I end up at. But it's definitely something needed. Like you said, there's no way for us to get trained just as birth doulas, and that's the only thing we're going to see. That's not possible. If we really serve our community, we're going to see more than just happy babies being born. We're going to see some stillbirths. We're going to see some miscarriages, and we might have to help somebody through an abortion. So, yeah, like what you said, we definitely need all of that training.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. 'Cause as you said before, birth of the child is the only aspect, and I think that um, we have been conditioned to only focus on the birth of a child, and not just in the aspect of like, we're going to ignore um, the mom, and we're going to focus on this gender reveal and focus on
Right,
this baby shower, and once you have a baby, it's never about you anymore. All of these things that are taught to us that just simply aren't true, and
right.
so is such a big factor that we completely ignore all of the things that happen when you don't take a baby home.
Yeah,
And for me personally, where I literally in a matter of days, I went from um, finding out I was pregnant to do I want an abortion? Do I want to have an abortion? Like continually like back and forth in that decision process. And
right.
that process, in a sense, I had, of course I have a community of women that are birth workers there, and they have given me, the virtual support like by text or call or whatever the case. But for the most part, it's something that you still are grappling with alone for the most part.
Hmm.
That from there I went from being an indecision to thinking that I was experiencing a loss. and grappling with, oh, I actually did want the baby, and
Right.
fear that lied in there, and then finding out, okay, yeah, you're still pregnant, everything's good, but then it's like, how am I going to transition from 2 children to 3? And I think
Right.
there a lot of emotions just in that experience. But even in my previous live on this past Monday, where I talked with my sister Brianna, where she talked
Mm-hmm.
had an abortion, and if she had had a doula there, if she knew what a doula was, someone like her to be there for her during that time, she might not have had, had chosen to have an abortion. And I think that even if that was her choice, she would have had to be there to even still to be there with her the entire time as she processed that.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think with birth, it's a lot of fear. It's so much fear involved, no matter if it is, being pregnant or not pregnant or getting pregnant or the reasons why you're not pregnant. There's so much negativity around it. And many people, we see the positive, we see the beautiful, maternity pictures, and we see the newborn sessions and stuff and photos and all that stuff, that's presented us every day through social media. But I think we still, need to have a lot of awareness about pregnancy loss and about abortion access and aid for that as well. So, um, and the fear needs to just be dropped by his wayside, because whether we know it or not, we know somebody who has had an abortion. I mean, what they say, 7 degrees of separation. We know someone who has had an abortion, or been the result of someone deciding not to have an abortion, So it's just a lot that we, as a community, as women, Black women as well, need to kind of get away from putting our fears on everyone and having others put their fear on us, and just take it for what it is.
yeah, I I I definitely agree with that. I think for me, it was kind of like I didn't know anything about abortions or anything like
Hmm.
that, of course, but there ended up, through me being pregnant and, through those situations with my son, for sure, that's when I found out that women in my family had had abortions, and they
Right.
either regretted it, or they didn't have someone there the entire time, or they felt alone and had to make those decisions by themselves. And I think that too, um, we need to also create space for healing in that, because um, just to at least debrief on that, to be able to
Hmm.
have their experiences in itself, because you feel shame and
Yeah.
guilt and a lot of a mixture of emotions, because I recently went through that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I felt so many different things, and I think that it's something that needs to be expressed and released, for
Yes.
sure. um and so what from here we talked about, like, which organization did you train with?
I actually trained with Birth Advocacy Doula Training, which is short for BADT, through Sabia Way and her wonderful staff of trainers. It was a 12-week program, very intense. Um, and we literally go through everything. Like I said, birth, postpartum, abortion. I think I even left out adoption. They also, go through that as well. So a lot of robust information in those 12 weeks. But yeah, it's a lot.
That's beautiful. I honestly feel like I will invest my money into going through that type of training
Hmm.
versus, oh, I got like a cheap rate of like $100 training, and then I still can't even certify if the doctor
Yeah.
on my birth. I would much rather exchange for being able to be an advocate in every aspect.
Yeah.
Um, and so you said something about certifying by offering care and not just by the births. What did you mean by that?
Well, the way the BADT does it is, when we necessarily we're trained, right? Those 12 weeks we go through, we train, we do our work, we read our books. But there's different ways to certify. because you're a full spectrum doula, a birth is not your only way to certify. If you provide support for someone who's had an abortion, that is a way to certify as well. So I think I love them for that because, I mean, you're going to do a full spectrum doula training and only be certified to do a birth. I mean, that it just doesn't match up. Also, postpartum support, because that's huge. A lot of people forget about that as well. We have somewhere there for birth, and we forget about that fourth trimester after, which is very tough on a lot of women. So even providing with postpartum work as well will get you certified with birth advocacy.
Amazing. So now I want to kind of dive into pregnancy and infant loss. I currently am taking a training, a PAIL advocacy training with NECA Hall,
Mm-hmm.
and that I was presented to by Dona International in that Black Dona Doulas group that I trained with. She was offering the course for a very low rate, and I'm currently training through that, and it's been very hard in a sense that like you learn so much,
Mm-hmm.
and you learn so many different terms as far as like what the different processes or procedures are for abortions, what stillbirth is, what are these things in your specific state, because that can be different,
Yep.
in Alabama versus Texas or versus Florida, and having to look up what is the type of help and access that you have um in your particular area. And the
Yeah.
other thing kind of which of course has changed because of COVID, but there are videos and things that we have to watch, like little movies and stuff that center around loss. But there's also this show that's centered in New England or Britain, where
Mm-hmm.
it's baby hospital, where you're like seeing the aspects of when your baby is born really early and you're going through that and you're literally living in the hospital while your baby is either recovering and
Mm-hmm.
their birth due date,
Yeah.
um, or they may not make it. And that's another aspect that you have to be prepared for. And the fact that, during COVID, of course, you can't go and volunteer to, help and care for those babies because a lot of moms just cannot be present.
Yep.
Um, it's a lot that goes into that. So before I dive any deeper, um, what is your experience with pregnancy and infant loss?
Um, my personal experience, I actually had a blighted ovum, which that's another thing with PAIL. You got to know exactly what that is and what stage of miscarriage that is, because some people will call it a miscarriage and just leave it at that, and that could be a blanket term. But the blighted ovum basically means that my body thought I was pregnant, but and I clearly acted pregnant the whole morning sickness and everything. But when we went to go look at an ultrasound, there was never a baby there. So whole, like the sac and everything is there. Your hormones is obviously flying up the roof, but there's just no baby. And around 12 weeks is when my body started processing that. And so that was different. I had never, ever heard of that before having it myself. Never heard of that. And I experienced that, and crazy enough, 2 weeks before then, one of my best friends who I had, she had asked me to be her doula, and she went in around her 8 weeks. She had a blighted ovum. And that was like, I went through that myself. Now I know what to say and what not to say and what to do, because she went through that as well as from my training and stuff like that. But um, it's kind of weird because I had already had two kids. So when I thought I was pregnant, I thought I was pregnant. It was no rush, especially with COVID. There was no rush for me to go get an ultrasound because I'm like, hey, I'm going through all the same experiences I had before. I even, we even started looking at, okay, we need a bigger car. Where are we going to put this baby? All of those things start going ahead. And that happens for a lot of women. I mean, you find out at 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, you're already by 12 weeks. You kind of start getting this plan together, what you're going to do and how things are going to change. And then, I'm not, what's the word? I wasn't emotionally drained by it, not like my client was or, my friend was. And I was able to be there for her um, by just experiencing that. So I've had clients who experience, miscarriages and all of that stuff and loss. But that's my personal experience. I don't, you know, I guess the normal emotions is everybody's expects you to feel sad about it or what have you. I didn't feel sad about it, but I know if somebody else was just wishing and praying and they didn't have kids and all that stuff, and then that to, go into ultrasound and just like see nothing, and to know and feel like you're pregnant is just devastating for a lot of women. And it was like that for my client. She was just, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to try again. And I'm like, I got to push you through this. Like, this happens. 1 in 4 pregnancies, not 1 in 4 women, 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss. And when I started showing her those, telling her those numbers or what have you, because she's a numbers person, like, oh, okay, so this is normal. Yeah, it is very normal. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, pregnancy loss, and I know it's a lot of triggers for everybody, but it is very, very common.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, I think that it's interesting how you were able to experience that and be a better birth worker in a sense
yeah.
for your future clients because of that, and it's giving you the experience. And I also feel like it's good to bring up the fact that you didn't necessarily feel as devastating, as emotions as, people. I feel like sometimes they want to force you to feel grief or sadness
Mm-hmm.
or things, and you can feel however you choose to feel about your experience. And of course, like my own feelings about just really anything, because with all of my children, I have grappled with, am I going to keep this child or not? There's a
Right.
lot of guilt and a lot of fear-based emotions and decisions made, and ultimately, deciding not to go through with it. But um, I have seen consistently that it's like, oh no, you need to feel sad, or oh, you need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
feel guilty and horrible outside of like your normal emotion range. Um, but yeah, and so what do you say? Oh, so this question came up when I was beginning my pregnancy and infant loss journey into the training, and I was like, wow, um I really want to be able to be there for everyone, because I did
Right.
a training for plus size women. I had done a training for, all these different trainings, because I want to be able to hear what other people go through so that I can know how to be the best advocate for them. And so
Mm-hmm.
the journey, I was telling my mom about it, and ultimately she felt like I shouldn't be, at the time, I shouldn't be trying to support people if I had never experienced that. And so what do you say to people that believe you shouldn't offer support if you've never experienced loss?
Um, I guess because I do know the numbers, 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss. I do know the numbers. I can't really say you shouldn't offer support, because not even if you had been pregnant, I think just and sometimes I even feel like, males get this too, because there are some male doulas out there. I think we have it. You experienced loss for something you wanted really bad, and it doesn't matter if it's a baby or or trying to get into a certain school, or I mean, just anything, or even it's a parent or a human being or even a pet for some people. If you experience loss, you know what that feeling is like. You know the range of emotions. The range of emotions does not change no matter what the item is. It's really on the depths of what it is in that person's heart. So how that person felt about it. And I don't know, I feel like you can support anybody, because it's not when you're supporting somebody, it's not about how you feel. You're there for them and their feelings, and to listen to them and to support them in the way that they, see fit. And some people will tell you exactly how they want to be supported, and how they want you to be there for you. And others, you kind of got to figure it out. But that's a part of being a doula. Um, and really just being a human being, being honest with you. You got to have that empathy. That's just us as human beings. We got to be there for people, no matter what the loss is. But yeah, I think Yeah, you can definitely support someone and not have experienced it yourself.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I feel the same. And so from here, I asked you two different things. So I asked about what were your victories at that time? What were your victories in birth work that you had experienced? And what were some struggles that you experienced as a birth worker? And I guess you can apply it to now if you like.
Let's see. As far as victories, hmm, I don't know if you could say it's a victory or not. I see it as a victory because I just feel like any experience will take me there. I've had where I've supported somebody and we made it close to, 33, 34 weeks and they can't, finish paying for me or what have you to be their doula. And to me, I feel like that's a victory because I was able to support them up to a point. It's no hard feelings. It's no nothing. I mean, I'm still the type of person like they could still call me during their birth if they had to. But I feel like it's a victory because it makes not just them aware, their communities aware, because I'm sure that person is saying, I did want them to have my doula, but financially I couldn't do it. Um, I feel like also it's also a kind of down point too, because I wish I had the funds for me to be able to, take off work and support them, even though they didn't be able to, be able to pay for me to be their doula. So I kind of put it as both. It's a victory and it's not a victory. I got a client, and I'm sure by word of mouth that helps. She supported me this far and she did this and what have you. And she's always there for me, blah, but I just couldn't have her at my birth. And I think that even happens for people with COVID restrictions. So, um, you get all the way to a point and maybe you get to the door and they say, no, you can't be there. But I see it as a victory and I do see it also as kind of a loss because I do financially wish I could be there for them and be like, nope, but me having a full-time job, I still have to get paid to take off. So, maybe and it's a day off. You just never know. But I see it as both victory and a loss.
Yes. Um, I understand. And I think from as I mentioned before, the fact that finding out about being pregnant literally put everything on the back burner because I've been having to process and just kind of put myself first in a lot of areas where I wasn't. And so the other thing was like, look, man, you've been given like $1,000 level service to the community for free. And
Yeah,
like, well, of course, I believe that the births that I've assisted up until this point were births that needed me. They needed me in those moments
yeah,
or could see what my impact was in those spaces.
yeah,
And I've had like relatives that I've like literally begged them, like, hey, I'm here and I just don't want you to be a statistic. Like, please listen to me or like take this free service. And they would still not take it. And now I'm in a
I
space like,
understand.
like go ahead. And like I literally overextended myself. And I feel like now I want to be paid my worth. Like, of
Yeah,
course, like I am a person that is like, we should never have to pay for anything. We should not have to prove
if
to
it's
anyone
free, it's for me.
to live. Like all like I really feel like it shouldn't be that way. But in a sense of like looking at money as a source of energy and the fact that you give in to me and that ultimately helps my family and I'm not
Yeah,
continuing sacrifice from myself. And even if it was money, like, are you gonna barter? Are you gonna give me something in exchange as well?
yeah,
Um, and so I can see how you have made the decision, and so many other powerful women as well in my life have made those decisions to have those boundaries set that I am going to be paid and I'm going to give that work. And I
yeah,
love the fact that you were able to give your client as much service as you could provide. And even so, if they were still like, hey, I'm in the hospital right now, I just want to talk to you through this situation, you're still there for them and you're
yeah,
still making that sacrifice and it's your choice to. And I think that I understand that aspect now. Jazzy Granado says, I wish I would have known about this when I was pregnant. Yes, ma'am. Um, I had no idea what a doula was. literally until way after I gave birth to my second child. So you and I are in the same boat. I feel like if I had had a birth worker in any of my pregnancies, I would feel a lot more solidified in the choices that I made, and
Yeah.
it wouldn't have taken as long for me to heal now, literally 5 years later, trying to still process through things and decisions that were made and things that were presented to me during those experiences.
Yep.
Um, so, as far as that, we started to talk about certification and support. And let's see. So yeah, we actually just talked about that. So diving into motherhood and womanhood. So what has that been like, having to balance motherhood as well as you as an individual?
It has been, I mean, it's been hard. I don't know if people go through these type of stages where, um, with me, I went through a stage where, oh yeah, I have a baby. That's cool. And I'm literally like, I don't know how else to put it, but yeah, that's cool. I have a baby, and I may be, the only little group of my family had a baby. I had great support system, which is great. My mother, my mother-in-law, my husband, everybody. But even with that aspect, having people who don't mind watching your baby or don't mind doing for you, or still see you as you, you still have to see you as you. And so I tend to, with the especially the last couple of years after having my second, not getting my nails done, not caring to get my hair done, or not wanting to go out with friends, rather just stay home and breastfeed. Why? I don't know, but just was like that. And then I think, and it's crazy, but when COVID happened, when none of those things were available to go get my nails done, to go get my hair done, to go, even just get waxed or something like that, then that's when I was like, I needed that. I'm missing that. Even though I hadn't did it in like a year and a half, I wanted it so bad. So when most in Alabama, the restrictions pretty much lifted, but I was like, you know what? Nope, I'm keeping my nails together. Regardless, I'm a virtual teacher. No one ever sees me besides here up. I'm going to get my nails done. So that was just on it. Good. But yeah, so those are the things that I was like, you know what? You got to start doing it. You got to start caring for yourself. Because people always say, oh, self care. And half the time you see self care is about taking a shower or Epsom salt bath. And I'm like, no, you need to feel good. You need to look good. And those were the main aspects. I felt good on the inside, but on the outside, I did not look like I wanted to look. I didn't look presentable, even if it's just for a run to Walmart. You gotta look presentable, and that helps your mood. So that's my goal. I'm turning 35 next year, so that's my goal, is to balance me more, because I mean, motherhood is there. It's not going anywhere. So I definitely got to take care of me.
It's interesting because I have seen, like, of course I'm seeing now in my aspect, like I think with my daughter when I gave birth to her last year and wanting to dive into self-care, that ultimately led me into birth work. But specifically about like and going out and looking a certain way and this and that, like once I went to college, so post 2013 and going into like all of that, I started to feel like I need to be self sufficient to where I'm not going to pay other people for services. And so I learned how to be natural, and so no one would have to do my hair. I knew how to do my hair. And I hadn't had my nails done. Like I literally do not go and get acrylic or anything on my nails. And it's been like, I want to say 5+ years. And it's so hard, for other people that are used to getting it done. And, of course, taking even short periods of time where you're not doing things to treat yourself and this and that. But I've gone through that where it's like, oh man, I should really just go in and get a pedicure or this and that. And when my friend Brianna, because I mentioned her again, she had treated me to a yoni steam, which I had been yoni steaming for a couple of years. And it was so different getting that. Oh, you said you can't hear? Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? Let me know. Can you hear? If anyone's in here in the comments, let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So that means that Ashley is having the hearing. Hold on, y'all. I'm texting. Thanks, Auntie. Yeah, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Oh my gosh. I think that's what happens when you have the AirPods in. Oh my God. Okay. I don't know what to say. Oh my goodness. Thanks, Erica. Actually disconnect your headphones. Yeah. Okay, great. Let me try to add her back in and see if that changes anything. Okay. So I guess while I'm adding her in, or she's loading.
Okay. What about now?
Yeah. Thank God.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
we're back. All right. Oh my gosh. I'd rather it be the audio than the shit shuts off and we gotta start over. So okay. And so what I was saying was I basically have already spent years not doing things or treating myself to things because I want to save money or because I want to be
Yeah.
self. And so when my friend Brianna or Life of an Herb Wife, she does yoni steaming sessions and facial steams. And so
Hmm.
I had won a session because someone had loved her services so much they had paid for like 17 sessions for Black women in the community uh to experience yoni steam. And so I had been doing yoni steams myself on my own for a couple of years now. And so I felt like, oh, I don't need someone else to give me this service and
Yeah.
that. But actually going to her home and experiencing that, it was amazing. And to not have to worry about boiling the water and making sure that everything was hot enough and the kids aren't going crazy and stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that. The differences in other ways to treat myself, whereas like maybe getting my nails done isn't something that I want to do still, and maybe I want to have services like that, or maybe I want to go and get a facial, or maybe I
Right.
want to, exploring things that may not it's kind of like going into self-discovery, like finding things that fit you in ways that you can treat yourself and make yourself feel whole. um so I love that you're trying to um take those steps.
Yeah. I'm trying to make it something permanent.
Yes. Um, let's see. And so from there, um, the last thing before I guess we close,
Hmm.
we talked about what Hope in a Future Birth Services is, like where the name came from, what it means to you and just your business as a whole. So, yeah.
Hope in the Future, the name actually came from Bible verse Jeremiah 29:11. Basically, God hopes for us to, not just gives us hope, but He wants for us to have a future, and it resonates with me. It's in my kitchen. I see it all the time, and I'm like, you know what? That's it. That's what I want. I want to support and have healthy. I want to support you. For what you're hoping for. And I also want to, support you in the future and make sure you have a healthy beginning and all of that, and lasting future. So that's kind of where the name came from and how I stuck with it, because that's exactly what I think about when it comes to birth. You hope for these things and you want a healthy baby and you want everything to go right. And you also want to make it. You want to be a good mom. You want to be, you want to do it the right way. And so your future matters. So that's where I got it, the name from.
It's beautiful. And as I've told people before, I chose Rose Gold Birth kind of as a play on my daughter's name, because her
Yeah.
middle name is Rose, and her last name is Gould, but I chose Rose Gold. And I felt like I want to give people an experience that is very much so advocated for. And I think that your particular message in your business is, as far as having a new beginning and a healthy beginning at that, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
I love that. What are some takeaways that you would like to give an up and coming birth worker?
Um, Take it one step at a time. One training at a time, one birth at a time, one client at a time, however you see it. And then from there, you'll find your niche, because maybe it's not birth, maybe it's placenta encapsulation, maybe it's not that, maybe it's postpartum, maybe it's abortion doula, maybe you just go all the way and go into fertility. You just never know. It's a large, large spectrum for birth. And you might not do any of that doula stuff. You might end up being a midwife for all you know. So it's just, take it one day at a time and one training at a time, one client at a time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate you having space with me to talk about
Oh, yeah.
full birth work and pill advocacy and all the things that lie in between all of that. I'm grateful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored. Thank you.
And to everyone that watched till the end, everyone that popped up in the other times that we tried to go live between 6 o'clock and now. Thank you to anyone that catches the replay. I'm grateful. If you liked this and any of my other lives from this series or the Iconoclast series,
Hmm.
please donate to the Cash App Rose Gold Birth. I have not been doing that. I want to start saying that now.
Yes,
It's my Black business, because you support, in a sense, you support.
definitely.
So
Yes.
yeah, thank y'all. Have a good night, Ashley.
Thank you again.
Y'all on the next one.
Yes.
All right. Good night, everybody.